Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining today's session on future of CX, evolution of chatbots to conversational AI. My name is Karthik. I lead the product team at Aisera for customer service. And yeah, today's session is really to talk about the state of customer experience, right? So where we are, some of the challenges we are seeing in customer experience, and chatbots are not new. It's been around, and to talk about how conversational AI as a technology can really help change your customer experience. I'm going to show a few examples of how we can do that, and talk about kind of best practices, what we've seen, from the trenches of customers, best practices of how to deploy this technology, and in the end, take some questions. So with that, I want to get started with take you back to the beginning of last year, earlier this year, right? So Jan 2021. I'm sure all of you are familiar with Robinhood. But what an interesting story that took place was towards the end of Jan 2021, almost 13 million Robinhood customers were kind of blocked from trading, right? And that was interesting because they had some clearinghouse restrictions, and the result of this was many of Robinhood customers were locked out, right? They had no way of trading, they had no way of contacting customer support, and they were kind of left stranded. And in some cases, I read an article from Wall Street that it took almost 5 weeks, right, for them to get locked out. And why did I share the story? So I think it's interesting that there are companies we've seen in the last 12 months experience hyper growth, but that has come with a cost of bad customer experience. And to put that in perspective, so trading on the markets and Robinhood apps can just take seconds, but getting an account problem fixed can take weeks, right? So putting that in perspective is really how bad the customer experience can get. I'm sure all of you would have had that one bad customer experience, in our everyday life. So whether it's trying to upgrade your plan, or trying to go through a retailer or a travel company, you always had that experience and it left you in bad taste, right? So, and the reason is, I think it's a familiar story. So if you look at every time you are optimistic at the start of a journey, and you call in for an upgrade, but guess what? Then you're put on hold for 20 minutes, right? And just because the call center is overwhelmed. And then you get on hold and you give all the details, and then they tell you, oops, you're in the wrong department, let me transfer you. Right? So then you get transferred to another department, and you repeat this all over again, and you're already starting to feel a bit frustrated. At the end of the day, they got all your info, but the system glitch, and they can't solve the issue right now, so they're going to have to mail you back. And at the end of the day, you are super frustrated and probably are going to leave the company, right? And that's really what I'm trying to highlight, is that 1 in 3 customers are going to leave your brand after just one experience. So it's super important that you don't take your customer experience for granted, right? And even so today, where we are so used to getting things delivered at the push of a button, it's important to start thinking about this holistically. So to summarize, what are the top challenges we see customers facing, right? And the challenges are really this lack of customer insights. What we mean by that is, people don't want to repeat themselves when they come in. They don't want to have to hop between different experiences and different channels, and navigate through all these different technologies. They really want to get a resolution. That's really what they are coming in for, right? It's about getting that timely resolution and moving on with what they were doing before that. Right? The challenge is, the frustrating experience is that it takes time, right? On average, we see the data shows that it takes almost 3 days to get a customer support issue resolved, right? And then the answer to that is not to throw people at the problem, right? Or buy more technology to just solve one niche problem. And so over time, what we're seeing is this cost has become unsustainable, right? Now, especially at a time we've seen that employee experience is so key, and we've seen companies like Zoom and products like Teams and Slack really change the way employees communicate and collaborate within the company, especially in a remote work environment. We are seeing that customer experience has kind of lagged behind, right? People are still communicating using age-old technologies like portals or sending an email or calling in. And even recently, people have introduced chatbots, right? But the experience has not been really up to the mark, right? And that's kind of where we've seen a lot of cases where I was surprised to see that in 2019 alone, 90% of chatbots projects fail, right? Now that's massive. Uh, and to not and if you kind of double click on why that is the case, uh, it's not surprising that it's because of the experience, right? So most of the experience is still very robotic, and if it's highly scripted, it's decision trees. We are seeing that it's extremely expensive to deploy and manage chatbots, because it's not like the first time you deploy and you go live, but it's really continuous improvement. And finally, no AI learning. And what I mean by that is the chatbot is not getting intelligent or smarter over time, right? Automatically, it needs more human input. It needs that high maintenance. So this is really prohibitive for people to see successful chatbot deployments. And putting that in, uh, if I'm sure you've seen the case of Bank of America's chatbot Erica. Now that came with a $10 million price tag if you had to build a chatbot like that, right? And that kind of resources is not available to most companies and organizations. Secondly, the long time to value. People can't wait for like 1 year to see the plan in fruition, right? This is too long. A lot of things change in 12 months. We know that, and it's important to really deploy this quickly. And finally, the specialized skill set, right? It's not easy to get data scientists and machine learning experts all the time. So, and this is another reason why many companies have not been successful in building deploying chatbots. One of the things I want to highlight is so the way we think about chatbots are typically like decision trees, and they work well with FAQs, and they work well with these if then else kind of workflows. But the problem with that chatbots is they don't scale, right? And they also require a high degree of supervision. So what we have seen across the board is that the more the number of intents that grows in your organization, because guess what? You may have people will say, hey, why don't you start with the top 20%, right? That's great to start with. But what happens after that? Your users are not going to ask always top 20 questions. They may ask something outside of it. They could ask something, in different ways that you have not encountered before. That's where the technology has seen it's not able to scale. And we believe that there's an emergence of conversational AI can help address that bigger 70% of all requests coming in. So bottom line, I know there's a lot of chatbot bashing, but just to summarize, I think what we're trying to say is over the years, with many of these data points, we believe that it's not something you should undertake lightly. So building a chatbot is a lot of work. It's extremely expensive, and not every company has the resources and budget to kind of deploy that. So that's why I think conversational AI, as I kind of segue into that, is a great technology that can help you deliver these experiences at scale, right? And if you look back at the evolution of how we came across, so like I said, chatbots are not new. They've been around for a while. It started with these rule-based FAQ kind of chatbots. They worked well with Q&A content, but the experience was very robotic and scripted. We got some introduction of machine learning-based chatbots, kind of that did a bit of dialogue flow, but again, there was no automation, there was no AI learning, and those also kind of fell short of expectations. And now we are in this third generation of chatbots, what we call as conversational AI, and really that whole experience can be driven unsupervised, right, with very little data training, it's context awareness, and that can handle complex multi-turn dialogue, right? That's kind of what we're looking at, that can help, and the technology is available today for you to deploy and start using for your customer experience. So if you look into some of this transformation that's happening right now, what we're seeing is, from the analyst, that almost in no time, right? So 70% of all your requests are going to be handled through AI. So this is not something a prediction. This is happening right now, and we are seeing many customers that have deployed this technology get a huge percent of their requests now handled through AI, and that really has helped them scale the support team and also reach their KPIs, right? At the same time, we think uh, customer experience is the number one priority, right? People are willing to pay more for a great customer experience. This is the number one priority for consumers and also internal CX organizations. They are willing to invest, and that's where conversational AI can play a great role in kind of helping deliver on that promise. And the third reality is that in the last 12 months, the contact centers as we know it is no longer the same. People are going to still deliver that remote, right? And people delivering this, maybe from countries that have low bandwidth, that may have some other external factors where they could not log in, right? And so all of this is more and more indicating that companies need to take advantage of technology and automation to really help drive that self-service experience. So we think with all these with all the trends happening, that there's it's really prime time to kind of reinvent this whole customer experience, and with things we are seeing going from reactive to being more proactive, or going from a more manual experience where people are navigating different support sites to get the answers to a more AI-powered self-service experience, and finally, not having that user engagement with your brands and conversations to a more 24/7 conversational AI agent. Right? This is really powerful, where you can drive more traffic, more chatter, and have a better user experience another day. So the good news with conversational AI is that there's a lot of data, right? And whether it is through phone conversations or whether it is through live agent transcripts, you have all that data locked in your enterprise. It's there, and this is like prime data of fuel for your conversational AI, right? To take advantage of this and come up with an agent that can help resolve requests for users, right? And we believe that it's going to be mainstream. So almost inside the enterprise, at least, we know that almost 50%, half the users are going to be interacting with this on a daily basis, right? And the way we look at that is this conversational AI is something that needs to be omni-channel. So whether you're interacting through chat or through a social media, or whether through a mobile app or voice, right? It's not just a text-based approach, but any channel. You come in, you ask a question, right? And the virtual assistant should be able to get into the knowledge base or get into your enterprise application, and get the right answer immediately, right? Now that's a great experience. I don't have to wait to log in a ticket and wait 3 days to someone respond that. I can come in and ask my question and get an answer immediately, right? And we learn continuously. So through your ticketing systems or through your chat logs that are took place, we have a continuous feedback loop that keeps learning from those conversations and further bootstrapping your virtual assistant. Right? So let's take a look at what are some of the key capabilities of this conversational AI technology, right? So I think across the board there's a lot here to unpack, but I would kind of spend time on the key highlights. Uh, there's a lot of push on being proactive, right? So we are really seeing customer experience, like I talked about, going from reactive to proactive, and we can do that through events and workflows that can drive that experience. So you could be on your email, or you could be on your chat, and we can proactively tell you, hey, here is something you got to pay attention to, right? And that's a very important element of that experience, which people really appreciate, because guess what, being proactive means it's being one step ahead, and you don't have to have customers call in for your support, right? Secondly, the whole guided flows need to be unsupervised, based on what the community is asking, or what the your wider audience is asking. You can tailor the whole experience. Your welcome experience as soon as you launch a chatbot, sorry, conversational AI agent, can be tailored based on what people are most frequently asking, right? So it no longer has to be static, right? I think today someone talked about in the morning, handling complex queries, right? So it's not just important to extract the intent from one query, but if you could ask long sentences and still have the accuracy to extract the right intent, and resolve the request, right? It's important to understand the domain. What do I mean by that? There could be sometimes I ask about billing questions. I could be asking about troubleshooting questions, technical questions. There could be sometimes I have questions where I want to reach out to sales. So it's important that we need one pane of glass, where no matter what question you ask, we can detect that domain and give the right experience to the user, right? Without saying, hey, go to this place for a sales chatbot and go to this place for a billing chatbot. That's really going to be a bad experience. right? And uh, the other thing is the engine, right? What I call about the engine of a car. The analogy here is the whole ontology and taxonomy. This is where you're going to spend a lot of time building that dictionary for your vertical. So if you are building this for, let's say, a retail customer, you're going to be building this from scratch, right? And a lot of now, I mean, with conversational AI and what we've been investing is that dictionary for verticals, right? So out of the box, we have now like 15 verticals we support, and that takes a lot of time, right? We build that by looking at hundreds of millions of tickets, and over time we can say, hey, here are the top categories in retail, or here are the top categories in high tech, and it has things like billing and subscription, and it has different payment methods, and we understand things like ACH and PayPal and so on. So all of these nuances of the whole lexicon of this, vocabulary that is required for the chatbot is something that we have bootstrapped, and so you get that day one value, right, without having to build this from scratch. And I'm going to talk about context awareness. So really, it's about people don't talk in in linear paths. So I could have one question and change my mind and come back. It's important, and this is a piece of technology that conventional AI supports: context awareness, context switching, right? So without being awkward, right? This is super important, and then clarification. Sometimes people ask vague questions. That's just the nature of it. Maybe people are coming from a search paradigm, right, where they have one or two word. We see a lot of people asking also just like one word or two word queries, and you can't come back and say, I'm not sure what you're talking about, and it's not good to also give them the wrong answer. A better experience would be if you can clarify, right? You talked about billing. I'm not sure what exactly you're referring to. Is it billing in updating a payment method, or having issue with refunds? What is it, right? And so clarifying on the fly is a super important capability as well, that conversational AI can offer, right? And finally, seamless escalation. So chatbot is not going to be right all the time. So you do want that seamless escalation to a live chat or ticketing system at any point, based on user feedback and sentiment and so on, to drive that transition. So one thing we've seen, I talked a lot about, information and knowledge, and that's great. And a lot of chatbots, conversational AI agents have been focused on that. But we think that the majority of the requests coming in are in the category of what we call as actions or transactions. What I mean by that is people are coming to get some things done, right? So it's not enough for the NLP just to understand what you're doing and get you the right answer. It's important to get things done. This is where I think traditional chatbots have left it to the vendor or the company to go build that integration, right? So like, hey, we can do the NLP part really great, but it's up to you, dear customer, to go and figure out the integrations and build the connectors and do the actions and so on. And that is super expensive. And we one of the things when we started, our CEO started this company, is that it really needs to be together, right? So you cannot have these disparate technologies, one for NLP and one for the actions. These two have to be, we really think it has to come together, because people really want to, the next thing after you understand what the user is asking for is getting things done, right? An example of that is, really think about your subscription upgrades, right? And like I said, again, this could take on average 3 days. Why? Because you're sending a ticket, they have SLAs, they could have a queue, it gets routed to the right team. They once they process the queue, they get to it. And there's a bunch of systems that will log into and look up your profile and check for that, right? And then finally take care of it. So this is a very wounded process. But if it's conversational, what we call as AI and automation, you can do this like within a minute, right? And we see customers coming and asking this question in natural language. Our AI breaks it down, we understand what they're asking for, and hand it off to a workflow to get that thing automated, right? So this is what we believe, that it's important to not only just do the AI, but kind of break it down. So this is I would say, under the hood view of how that happens, right? If people can ask these queries in natural language, and we can detect what are the entities and intents derived from it, and then once we get the right match, we can then hand it off to a workflow to kind of fulfill that request for the user, right? And that is super important, in whatever channel they are. They're not only understanding the request but getting it resolved. So just a summary. So we call this category conversational RPA. So it's a mixture of the conversational AI, which is the whole NLP and understanding of what you're asking, with the automation, right? And together, this is super powerful now. Not only can you deploy, self-service experiences from your knowledge base, but it can also get things done with your integration systems, that enterprise application systems uh, that are suited to your vertical, right? It could be like a billing system in Zora or a Salesforce system that you have. You can really connect to that and get things done. And our firm belief is that we are going to see a consolidation where people are already asking for that. You don't need conversational AI agent for your sales and marketing, and one for your customer service, and one for your e-commerce. That really creates a very convoluted experience. We think it's better to have like one platform that powers the entire thing journey and can connect the touch points, right? So you really want to know the customer journey, where they started, where they dropped off, what are the friction points, what is the sentiment, and what you can do to power that, right? So and that's kind of what we've been doing from the day one, is really powering that end-to-end experience, no matter where they are on the journey. So just to summarize, I think the benefits are going to be, the conversion experience. I think that's super important. It all starts with end users and what they're asking for, and it's important to also understand that when at what use cases you can deploy this technology for. We've seen a lot of benefit where people are coming in today where they're not getting value out of their the search experience, and it's just a single thread response, right? And they're stuck. This is kind of where you can deploy this and have a dialogue with your users and get kind of what they're looking for, get more signals that can drive their experience. It's important in today's time with with chatbots. Like I said, 9 to 12 months is unacceptable. You have to be deploying this much faster, right? So keep that in mind when you're evaluating and looking at how long, what's the time to value. Cost savings, right? End of the day, it's all about ROI. So if you are not able to, reduce your support desk costs or automate, then it's really not adding value. That's something that's been a North Star, from day one. It's really auto resolution and making sure we can, improve productivity, right? CSAT experience, again, with the conversational experience and getting the right accurate responses, you can drive higher CSATs. We have seen on average customers get to like 85% CSATs with this technology. And finally, I think something is we all talk about is, and that's a really hard thing to do, is the personalization, right? So how can you be more personalized and give people remember their preferences with consent and without sounding too creepy, giving them recommendations, right? That they can take advantage of and feel more empowered. So just to summarize, I think what we believe is in the conventional AI, three key capabilities you need to look at is, the whole AI on the fly, right? So we believe that unsupervised NLP is our differentiator, because it's not enough to just like train the bot and build that over time, and that's too much maintenance. With unsupervised NLP, we can do that. Give us the tickets, give us your knowledge documents. We can build that intelligence automatically, right? And the second piece I talked about is the marriage of conversational AI and RPA to give you this new category called conversational RPA. We've been the first company to be advocating that and having this in production for a while. Super important to again see the value, right? So companies no longer now have to talk to yet another platform just to build those integrations. You can do that all in one platform. And the third point is about user intelligence. How do you capture the signals, and how can you be more personalized at scale? So with that, I hope you had a good understanding of the evolution from chatbots to conversational AI. And if you have any follow-up questions, please look up us on Aisera.com, and you can send us an email at contact@aisera.com. Thank you so much.